The 47 Signal Squadron is a unit of the Royal Corps of Signals within the British Territorial Army. History, formation and early history. During the Napoleonic Wars, the gentlemen of Uxbridge sought permission from the government to form a military association to maintain law and order. When the regular forces were sent to the coast to protect the country against invasion by the French, a cavalry troop was raised in 1797 entitled the Uxbridge Volunteer Cavalry, and its first captain-commandant was Christopher Baines Esq. The role of the Uxbridge Volunteer Cavalry was to act as armed police and support the civil powers in maintaining law and order in the local parishes. A second troop was raised in 1798 with the change of title to Uxbridge Yeomanry Cavalry. Captain Commandant Christopher Baines was appointed Major Commandant and the UYC was given a wider sphere of operation. The volunteers provided their own clothes and horses, and received no payment if called out to quell a disturbance. At the end of the war with France, the number of yeomanry units was reduced, and it was not until 1830 that the Uxbridge Yeomanry Cavalry was reformed to maintain the peace during a period of extreme poverty, when rioters terrorized the inhabitants and destroyed machinery which was being introduced into the agriculture and cotton industries. The uniform worn by the Uxbridge Yeomanry Cavalry was of the light dragoon pattern with a broad-topped shako of dark green, ornamented with a brass Maltese cross with the arms of the county of Middlesex placed in the centre, and the motto adopted was Pro Aris et Focis, which can be loosely interpreted as the hearth and home. In 1856 the badge was changed to a gilt metal six-pointed star, surmounted by the royal crown, and a circle bearing the regimental motto Pro Aris et Focis enclosing the royal cipher VR. There were variations to the uniform until 1871, when the Uxbridge Yeomanry Cavalry was ordered to raise a fourth troop and to change its title to Middlesex Yeomanry Cavalry. The commanding officer adopted the hussar uniform, keeping the green hussar tunic with black collars and cuffs, yellow hussar lace on the collars, cuffs, and back, with 3 across the breast, blue-black overalls with double red hussar stripes, a hussar busby with dark green bag, and a red undergreen brush with yellow lines, trimmings and bosses. In April 1884 the Queen graciously honoured the regiment with the title Middlesex Yeomanry Cavalry. There were many changes in the yeomanry force during the later years of the 19th century. The squadron became the official unit. The Middlesex Yeomanry was formed of 2 squadrons, each with 2 troops, and the regiment was brigaded with the Berkshire Yeomanry, which formed the 1st Yeomanry Brigade. Soon after the reverses in Natal, the government found that the only way to raise a large number of mounted men was to call upon the yeomanry for the volunteers to serve overseas. There was an immediate response from the regiment, and by the end of January 1900 the Middlesex Yeomanry had raised 3 companies, the 34th, the 35th, and the 62nd, plus a Maxim gun detachment. The 34th and 35th companies, together with 2 companies raised in Kent, formed the 11th Battalion under command of Colonel Kenyon Mitford, the commanding officer of the Middlesex Yeomanry. The 62nd was placed under command of the 14th Battalion. In January 1901 a second contingent of yeomanry was raised to replace the original 34th, 35th and 62nd companies, and with a 4th company, the 112th, formed the 112th Battalion under command of Colonel R.B. Firmin. Few yeomanry regiments have such proud memories of daring in South Africa as the 2 fights against such heavy odds which occurred at Senekal and Tweefontein. Middlesex Imperial Yeomanry, With the end of the South African War in 1902, there was a general reorganization of the Yeomanry. The title of the whole force was changed to Imperial Yeomanry, and the name of the regiment changed to Middlesex Imperial Yeomanry. The regiment was increased to 4 squadrons totaling 596 all ranks, which included a machine gun detachment. At the time there were 4 new yeomanry regiments being recruited in London, so it was not an easy task to increase the strength of the regiment from 200 to about 600 all ranks. 1st County of London Yeomanry Middlesex. On the 1st of April 1908 the regiment became part of the Territorial force being recruited in London. The title then changed to the 1st County of London Yeomanry, and with the other London Yeomanry units formed the London Mounted Brigade. World War I. In accordance with the Territorial and Reserve Forces Act 1907, which brought the Territorial force into being, the TF was intended to be a home defense force for service during wartime, and members could not be compelled to serve outside the country. However, on the outbreak of war on the 4th of August 1914, many members volunteered for Imperial service. Therefore, TF units were split in August and September 1914 into 1st Line and 2nd Line units. Later, a 3rd Line was formed to act as a reserve, providing trained replacements for the 1st and 2nd Line regiments. 1/1 of a Stone County of London Yeomanry. In the summer of 1914 the regiment was in camp at Molesford, Berkshire, when the declaration of war with Germany interrupted the interregimental sports planned to take place on the bank holiday. Instead, the regiment returned to headquarters and by the 5th of August was ready to mobilize. The Middlesex Yeomanry, together with the 1st City of London Yeomanry and the 3rd County of London Yeomanry, formed the 8th Mounted Brigade of the Yeomanry Mounted Division. It was the yeomanry regiments of this division, which were used as detached regiments and brigades on the Egyptian, Gallipoli and Salonika fronts, and with the Desert Column under General Allenby, took part in the advance from the Suez Canal, culminating in the battles of Gaza in 1917. During this campaign, Alexander Malins Lafone was awarded the Victoria Cross. Lt. Colonel Oliver Cyril Spencer Watson, another Middlesex yeoman, was detached from the regiment to the 2nd, 5th Battalion, King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry in 1917. He ultimately assumed command of this infantry regiment and was awarded the Victoria Cross on the 28th of March, 1918 at Rossignol Wood, north of Hebutton, France. The Middlesex Yeomanry consequently lays claim to 2 of the 3 Victoria Crosses awarded to the Yeomanry as a whole. 2/1 of a Stone County of London Yeomanry. The 2nd Line Regiment was formed at Chelsea in 1914, and in November 1914 it was at Ranelagh Park. By June 1915 it was with 2/1 of a Stone London Mounted Brigade in 2nd Mounted Division, and was at Bela Park in Norfolk. In October it was at Blickling Hall. On the 31st of March 1916, the remaining mounted brigades were ordered to be numbered in a single sequence. The brigade was numbered as 12th Mounted Brigade and the division as 3rd Mounted Division. In July 1916, the regiment was converted to a cyclist unit in 4th Cyclist Brigade, 1st Cyclist Division in the North Walsham area. In November 1916, the division was broken up and regiment was merged with the 2/3 Road County of London Yeomanry to form 6th Yeomanry Cyclist Regiment in 2nd Cyclist Brigade. probably at Reepham. In March 1917 it resumed its identity as 2/1 of a Stone County of London Yeomanry and moved to Overstrand. In the autumn it moved to Melton Constable. In May 1918 the regiment moved to Ireland and was stationed at the Curragh, still in 2nd Cyclist Brigade, until the end of the war. 3/1 of a Stone County of London Yeomanry. The 3rd Line Regiment was formed in April 1915 at Ranelagh, and in the summer it was affiliated to a Reserve Cavalry Regiment in Eastern Command. In the summer of 1916 it was affiliated to the 6th Reserve Cavalry Regiment at the Curragh. Early in 1917 it was absorbed into the 2nd Reserve Cavalry Regiment at the Curragh. Royal Signals. After the war there was a reduction in the number of cavalry regiments, and the Middlesex Yeomanry selected to re-roll as cavalry signals to the 2nd Cavalry Division, and recruiting started on the 20th of May 1920. The 2nd Cavalry Divisional Signals was integrated with the newly formed Royal Corps of Signals in June of that year, becoming the first unit formally established into the Corps. The regiment fought hard to retain its old title, privileges, cap badge, motto and uniform, including the ancient custom of NCOs wearing a crown above the stripes, and the quartermaster wearing 4 stripes with a crown. The shoulder title worn by the men changed to Royal Corps of Signals with the concession of AY above it. The years between the wars had seen the cavalry regiments gradually change from mounted to mechanized regiments. Although the 2nd Cavalry Division had retained some of its horses at the outbreak of war in 1939, following the Munich crisis in 1938, and the subsequent threat of war, thousands of young men and women volunteered to join the armed forces. In December 1938 the title of the regiment changed to Mobile Divisional Signals TA, until a 2nd regiment was formed in 1939 and the title changed to 1st Cavalry Divisional Signals. The regiment was reformed in 1947 and became the 16th Airborne Divisional Signals TA, and continued as such until the TA Airborne Division was reduced to a parachute brigade group in 1956. The Middlesex Yeomanry Signal Regiment became 40 Signal Regiment TA, until 1961 when it was amalgamated with 47 Signal Regiment TA, and the newly formed regiment became known as 47 Signal Regiment TA. The new regiment was given the role of Shape Troops, No. 3 Squadron, 40 Signal Regiment, 305 Signal Squadron TA. Did not become part of 47 Signal Regiment TA, but continued in its role as the Signal Squadron to 44 Parachute Brigade, retaining its Middlesex Yeomanry cap badge and badges of rank. It was subsequently reduced to become Airhead Signal Troop, still in support of 44 Para BDE but now part of 55 Signal Squadron, which also had troops in Cardiff and Liverpool. 55 Squadron was not parachute-minded, but the arrangement continued, including an eventful exercise in Cyprus, until 1978 when 44 Para BDE was broken up into 3 separate parachute battalions, 4, 10, and 15. The remnants of the Airhead Troop merged with the Signal Platoon of 10 Para. The CO of 10 Para, a charming Cameronian, greeted the former OC of the Airhead Troop with the suggestion that, as he was to take over the Signal Platoon, he would need to do a training course. The former OC, whose career had started in a Signals regiment in Wales and had declined through 305 Squadron to Airhead TP, replied, "Yes sir, what should I teach?" Quote, "It remains a mystery why he was not then sacked." When the Territorial Army Volunteer Reserve was formed in 1967, the Middlesex Yeomanry retained its title, but like so many other yeomanry regiments was reduced to squadron establishment and became 47 Signal Squadron, 31st Signal Regiment TAVR. In accordance with historical precedents, all yeomanry and militia units, including the Honourable Artillery Company, do not adopt the suffixes yeomanry and militia and have only ever been volunteer units formations. This is reflected in policy of the Royal Armoured Corps, who retain responsibility for the continued use of yeomanry titles, and within the Signal Officer-in-Chief's policy directive. Following the 1967 reorganization, the squadron was permitted to continue the ancient custom of NCOs wearing a crown above the stripes, and the SQMS wearing 4 stripes and a crown, and Middlesex Yeomanry collar badges continued to be worn on regulation uniform, but the Middlesex Yeomanry cap badge was replaced for the Royal Signal's Mercury cap badge, which is worn on all headdressless side hat. The coloured side hat of scarlet, piped with gold, and rifle green flaps piped with gold with scarlet dipped peak and 2 buttons, worn by officers and soldiers off duty, was retained and continues to be listed in the Army's dress regulations. Officers' caps have an embroidered cap badge in gold on rifle green cloth of an oval strap bearing the motto Pro Arce Fossis in the centre of the cipher MYC, and the whole ensigned by St. Edward's crown. On service and number 2 dress members of the squadron wear a metal Middlesex Yeomanry collar badge and the khaki green woven lanyard representing the rigging line of an Army parachute commemorating the previous airborne role rather than the standard blue of the Royal Signals. The squadron's webbing stable belt comprises crimson over gold and green with black edging, fastened by 2 nickel-plated buckles and black leather straps. With recent changes in combat and barrack uniform styles, squadron dress has also evolved. However, all NCOs continue to wear a crown above the stripes, a throwback to the days when they would escort the widow at Windsor. To distinguish SGTS from SSGTS, the staffies get to wear 4 stripes and a crown. Rank slides. 4. All ranks have the abbreviation MXYO below the rank insignia, and soldiers who have completed training are entitled to wear a slide solely with the squadron's abbreviated title. Recent reorganizations within the Territorial Army and TAR Royal Signals has seen 47 Signal Squadron move, in 1995, to come under command of the 39th Signal Regiment. In 2006, 47 Signal Squadron came under the command of 71 Signal Regiment. The squadron took command of 831 troop based at Southfields on 1 October 2009. At this stage the squadron became the lead Sabre squadron for 71 Signal Regiment, because of the number of trained soldiers when compared to the other Sabre squadron in the Rect. The squadron is loosely associated with the USMC due to previous members attending joint exercises on the US-UK exchange and the long-standing relationship with the USMC London Embassy Detachment quartered in West London. The squadron is currently commanded by Major Michael Curtis Raz and the squadron Sergeant Major Staff Sergeant Claire Goodwin. It holds the freedom of the London Borough of Hillingdon, and it also has an active regimental association which is affiliated to the Royal Signals Association. Former commanders of the squadron currently dominate the R Signals Reserves hierarchy, with Brigadier Steve Potter serving as Assistant Commander, Support Command. Colonel Paul Wilmot as Colonel Reserves R. Signals, Assistant Director Reserves in the Capability Directorate Information in the Army HQ. Colonel Carla Lancaster as Assistant Commander 11 Signal Brigade and Lieutenant Colonel Mike Smith as the SO1 at RHQ R Signals. All continued to wear MXO rank slides. Bibliography. James Brigadier. British Regiments 1914–18. London, Samson Books Limited. ISBN 0-906304-032. Milam, Patrick. The Yeomanry Regiments, 200 Years of Tradition. Edinburgh, Canongate Academic. ISBN 1898410364. Rinaldi, Richard A. Order of Battle of the British Army 1914. Ravi Rikai. ISBN 9780977607280.